In this tutorial, I'd like to show you how to make a tree, an abstract tree, to complement your sculpture and any other assignments that we complete in Rhino for the semester. So you can see my example here. I just wanted to show you what you can achieve, and I just want to break this down for you and explain the commands that I used to construct this tree. And again, just trying to keep it very abstract. Um, I don't want it to be realistic, only because we don't need to achieve those types of results. And this is a good way also to learn some new commands. So you'll go ahead and get started with this project. Make sure to check Brightspace for the file name to save it under. And when you go ahead and get started with a new file, make sure you come over here to File and you go to New. I'm going to say no to my changes, even though I'm going to come right back to it. And when you start a new file, you're going to go with the large objects, inches, feet, and inches. Make sure you're using that template. I'll go ahead and cancel because that's the template I used here for my project. And then also don't forget to do a file and save as before you get started modeling. And remember, it's going to include your first initial last name. And again, check Brightspace for that. All right, I'll go ahead and begin. Actually, sorry. I wanted to make sure that my interface looks similar to your interface. So there's something I want to do here, and you may want to do the same thing. I need to reset my interface just in case I changed anything because I do a lot of practicing here on my own. So I'm going to come up here to Window, and from Window, I will go to Window Layout, and then I'm going to select Default Window Layout. And what this will do is it will reset my panels and toolbars to go back to the default state. And now I can go ahead and continue. So what I'd like to start with first is the tree trunk right here. And I'm simply going to start with a solid object. And I'm going to come over here to my solid tools. I'm going to go to the cascade menu for solid creation. And I'm going to select this icon. And this one is truncated cone. I'm going to click on it. And you can see up at the top, it will say truncated cone. Give me 1 second. Sorry, it's just not showing up like it should. Let me expand this a little bit here. Okay, there we go. Truncated cone. Just so you know. So you can type that out as well. So truncated cone it is. And I'm being prompted to select the base of the cone. And because I want to start it at that origin where my two axes intersect, the red and the green, that's my origin point. So that's 0, 0. But in Rhino, all I have to do is type in 0 and enter. So it takes that point, and then I'm prompted to select a radius. And because I was practicing before, I already have it set to a radius base of 4 inches, and that's all right. I'll go ahead and enter, and you can set it anywhere between 4 and 6 inches. So 4 it is for the radius at the base, and then for the top of the truncated cone. So how tall do I want to make my tree? I was practicing, and I set it to 30 feet, and you can do the same. Any dimension is fine, 20, 25, all the way up to 40, 60, as big as you'd like to make it. It's up to you. Of course, just know that the taller the tree, the older it's going to be. So I'll keep mine at 30. I'll just enter. That's the default height. And notice how it's giving me this icon. It changes because it cannot continue. And that's only because I'm zoomed in real close. But if I zoom out more, there we go. Now it's starting to show me the entire cone. And now the radius at the top, I had set it to 2 inches. And notice what it wants to do. It wants to come out, but that's because I'm far away from that point. So as I zoom in a little bit closer, you can see how I can actually set it. And I could, if I want, type, or I'm sorry, click here, but I rather type it in. So the radius at the top, I will keep it at 2, so 2 inches that is, and enter. So that is my trunk. And I'll take a look at that. And I'm going to double click my perspective view, go back to the 4 viewports. I'm going to type ZEA for zoom extents all, enter, just so that I can see everything here on the screen. So here's my top view, And that's what my tree trunk looked from the top. Let me zoom out here a little bit. That's what it looks like from the front. And then this over here is the right-hand side. But if I look at the other tree trunk that I drew, let me just select that and isolate it for a moment. You'll notice that it is bending a bit. So I wanted to give it a very natural feel instead of keeping it rigid. So let me show all of my objects, and I'd like to show you how I did that. And it is very helpful that you have all four viewports open and that you have zoomed to the extent where it shows you all of your objects. So from here, what I'd like to do now is go ahead and bend it. So I can select it, and then there is an option right over here, and it's under my Cascade Deformation Tools. I give that a click, and I will go to this option where it says Bend. So if I click on it, you look at the command line, and the command line says Bend as well. So it's prompting me to select the start of the spine. And because I want it to start at the base, I'll just go ahead and type 0 and enter. I do not have ortho on, so keep that in mind. And then for the top or the end of the spine, I'm just going to hover over here. And I also don't have object snap on, so I'm just eyeballing this. So I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to try and pick, sorry about this. I keep clicking because I'm not used to Rhino as much as I am to SketchUp and other programs. So I'm just going to hover here and give this a click right about there, and then zoom it out. And notice how I can bend it in any direction. Now, I just want to give it a subtle blend, or I'm sorry, subtle bend. So I think this would be enough. And you can see from the top view how far it's extending out. So I'll just give it a click right here. And let me isolate this while I have it selected. I'm typing in isolate and enter. And then I can take a look at it. And from the front view, it is bending, which is great. But from the right view, it's still going straight. So I want to bend this again from a different angle, or rather from the right hand or the right side view. So I'll select it again, and this time I'll just type bend, B-E-N-D, enter. And start of the spine, I'll pick somewhere down here at the base. It doesn't have to be exactly at 0. Again, I'm just eyeballing it right here. Pick that point. And at the top, somewhere up here. And then I'll just bend it in this direction. And I'm just trying to be really free and natural with this. And then I think I'd like to incorporate one more bend. So I'm going to type in B-E-N-D. And then the start of the spine, instead of starting all the way at the bottom, I'm going to start it somewhere here, which I believe is somewhere in the middle. And then I'll select at this angle. Notice I'm not going straight, just follow that angle. And then just give it another quick bend like that. So more of a natural feel to it. I'll go ahead and deselect my object by tapping the escape key. And then I'll go ahead and type show so that it shows me all of my objects. There we go. All right. I'm going to go back to my perspective view for just a second because I want to look at my truncated cone, which now looks a lot different, a little more natural, while still being abstract. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is put in the form of the tree. So if I look at this from the front view, you'll notice as I pan over here to the side that I wanted to keep it somewhat round of a shape. And I established the center of my tree here, which is the widest point. And then you'll notice how I'm tapering as I go to the bottom and as I go to the top. So here's how I did that. I'm going to go to my top view. And then from the top view, let me just zoom out a little bit. And what I'd like to do is draw an ellipse. So I can draw the ellipse by hovering right here on this icon. I can go to the Cascade Ellipse. I have a few options here, but really the one I want is ellipse from center, so I'll pick that one. And then the ellipse center, I'll set it to 0, so I'll type 0, enter. I do not have ortho on. And then I'm prompted to select the end of the first axis. Well, if my tree is 30 feet tall, then typically it'll be the same overall width as it is height. So 30 feet wide. So my radius is going to be 15 feet or so. So I'm going to type in 15 feet, enter, and then I'm prompted to pick the location. And I'll pick it somewhere here, try to keep it straight, but it doesn't matter. I'll give it a click right there. And then I'm prompted for the next or the second axis. So for the second axis, I'll just go as round as I can, but I don't have to. And I could type in 15 feet or I can eyeball it. But here, I'll type in 15 feet and enter. And then I just go ahead and click up here and I have my ellipse. It looks round, yes, but I'll be able to control this because if I come over here to my grips on the red handle and on the green handle, you'll see how I can bring this in that direction. I can bring it in this direction. And this is why I did not want a circle. This way I can control it a bit. So that's my shape. And now I'm going to go back to my perspective view and I have it drawn here at the bottom. So now that I have that ellipse, I can use it to then generate the surface I need. So I will select it. And then from here, I want to create a planar surface based on this curve. So I'm just going to type in planar and then surf, S-R-F. And then you can go ahead and click on it to select. And then right away, it creates that planar surface. Great. I'll go back to my top view. Notice how it is still highlighted. If I go to my top view, it remains highlighted. Sorry, I meant to go to the front view. So from the front view, there it is, highlighted, and it's a little tricky to see, but if I zoom in a little bit, you can see there's my blue arrow. So if I just click and drag along the blue arrow, I can bring this up. And that's about the middle of where I want it, more or less. And then I'll click off of it. So that's the ellipse that I want to have, or rather the surface. If I go back to my perspective view, sorry, looks like I picked the ellipse, even though I didn't want that. I wanted my surface. Mistake on my part, no big deal. Pick the ellipse, tap the delete key. I don't really need it anymore. I'll select my surface now, and I will move it up. I'll go back to my front view, and I do want to bring it up just a little bit more, somewhere here. And then I'm just trying to visualize how round I want this shape to be. And here's where it will be helpful to have all four views like this. And then I think what I'll do is I will select these two objects. I'm going to type isolate. That way I can just focus on this by itself. So I can now take that ellipse, and if I just go to the front view here, if I feel that it needs to come in a little bit, if I need to change that diameter, I'll just go ahead and click and drag here to bring it in. And then on the other side, the right side, also bring that in a bit. And then I'll zoom it out, and there's the shape that I wanted. So now what I'd like to do is just make several copies of this. So I'll select it, and I'll just type copy and enter. And it says point to copy from. I'll just pick a point somewhere here. And I know that I do want ortho on, so let me do that, turn ortho on. And I want to make copies because I want to eventually make it to the top here. So maybe I pick that first, and then maybe one here, another one here, and then I'll go to the bottom, and I think that's what I want to be the lowest point. I'll pick another one there, and maybe another one right here. I'll tap the escape key. And I notice that I have more of a square shape, which is what I'm aiming for. And then maybe I can take this shape and move it up. And by the way, I'm doing this on purpose because there's no right or wrong here. I just want you to play with these shapes. So with that done, I can go ahead and proceed, but make sure you save your file. I'm not saving because I'm just showing this to you real quick, but either use the Control S keyboard shortcut or come up here to the icon to save, or just go to File and select Save. But make sure that you're saving so you don't lose any of your progress here. So I'm just gonna go to my front view, and I think I do want to move this one up a little bit more like that. All right. So let's say that's the middle one. I want to keep that there. And then as I get to the very, very top, I want to bring this in. So I'm just going to click and drag to scale it one dimensional. I want to place it right here. And it's only changing it on the front. That's okay. I'm going to come back to the right view in just a second. So I'll go here, bring that in, take this one, also bring that in, come to the bottom here. I want to bring that in pretty much almost the same as the top. And then I'll do the same thing here and bring this in a little bit there. So you see how it's starting to take on that shape. And then I can also select that. And if I want to center it on the tree trunk, I can just bring it over a little bit like that. Bring this one over as well. And I'm just being a little meticulous, but I just want to show you what you can do, what your possibilities are. So that takes care of the front view. Now I go over here to the right view and I'll repeat the same steps. I'll pick this lowest point and I'm sorry, the lowest surface. I'll bring that in. And you can see on the top view how I'm generating that round shape. And that's what I want to do there. And this surface, on this surface, I'll just click and drag that in. And I could do this from the top view as well, but it goes quick this way as well for me. So I'm just taking a look at the shapes that I have. And then I'll pick this one, bring that in a little bit, not too much. The next one, bring that in also somewhat round. Doesn't have to be exact. Bring that in also. And then the last one here, bring that in like that. So now if I go back to my perspective view, those are the shapes that I have. And if I wanted to, like I said, I can still select them and I can still bring those in if I want as I look at this. And then of course I can still continue to move them. Let's see, I can take this one, maybe bring it over a little bit more to center it there. This one, same thing, bring it over, and I think I'll stop right there. So this is good progress. You can add more detail, more surfaces if you want. It's entirely up to you. But I want to pause here for just 1 second. And I want to talk a little bit about the layers because I do want to start using layers and I want you to get comfortable with that. So what I'd like to do is just pick this first layer here. And when I select it, you'll notice that this icon here has been activated and it says that I can left click and it will create a new sub layer, which I want. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. There's my new sub layer. I can click on the layer again and let's see if this will work if I add another new sub layer, and it did. And what I want to do now is just go ahead and click on this layer, name, and then click on it again. And I'm going to call this one tree and enter. And then I'll go to the sub layer, which right now defaulted to layer 7. I'll click on that. And I'd like to call this one my trunk, enter. And then I'll go to this layer, give it one click to make sure that I've highlighted the correct layer, give it a second click to activate the name, and then be able to change it. So on this one, I'll just call this one leaves and enter. All right, and I did this on purpose because now I'm going to come over here to my trunk. And what I'd like to do is change the color of that layer. So I'm going to click here on this swatch, and then it opens up this window for my colors. And I'm just going to pick brown for now. And then I could, if I want, go over here to my color wheel. Give it 1 second. All right, and then from my color wheel, I could, if I want, just, let's see, instead of that color wheel, let's go to my HSL color wheel. I can change the saturation, change the lightness on it, all sorts of things, but this will do for now. And then I'll go ahead and click OK. And that makes that layer brown. And then for the leaves, I'll select that swatch and I want to pick green, or actually dark green. And if I want, I can change the darkness a little bit more here and then go ahead and click OK. So what I'd like to do next is assign my objects to the layers. So with this one highlighted, I'll go ahead and click on my object here, and then I'll come back to that layer, right click it, and I'll say, or I'll highlight the one that says change object layer. So I click here and then click off of it, and it has placed that object onto that layer. And notice how it changed the color to match the one that I had selected. And now I'll go ahead and pick all of my leaves, and then I'll go ahead and just right click leaves, and I will select change object layer. Done. Click off of it, and there we go. And if it's a little too dark, just go ahead, just go back, click on that layer, and then lighten it up a bit. And you can see it's changing down at the bottom. And I just want to make it a little more green, but I do want to lighten it up a bit more and then not saturate it as much. And then I'll go ahead and click OK. And that changes it slightly. So there's a tree. And again, make sure you control save your file. And before I finish with this one, I bent the tree trunk, but these are still laying flat. And what I could do is I can highlight them and I could rotate them along, I would say the red axis or the green axis. And all I have to do is just click and drag here on the green axis. And I do have ortho on, that's why it's not snapping, or rather that's not why it's showing me it changing. So I'm going to turn off ortho, come back, click and drag. You can see how I can tilt these. And I can tilt them in different directions, and that might help just to give it more of a free form, free shape. But there's something else that I want to show you that you can do. And I will go ahead and select this object here, and I'm going to isolate it. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more. And here's what I want to do. I want to show you how you can manipulate this object based on points. So I'm going to select it, and I can come up here to edit, and I can go to control points and select control points on. You can use your F10 key also. So I'll click control points on. If I look at the command line, it says points on. So it has 4 points associated with it. So if I click on that point, I can go ahead and click and drag it up like this. I can select this point and also click and drag that up. Maybe pick that one, take it down, take this one, and also bring it down. And maybe from the top view, I can go ahead and just click and drag that out a little bit and deform it a little more. I'll go ahead and tap the escape key and then go back to my perspective view, and I'll just type show to see all of the objects. So look at how different that set of leaves, I'm just going to call them that in the abstract sense. Look at how different that plane of leaves looks compared to this one. A little bit more playful, a little more dynamic. So that's something that you can do. And then I want to show you one other thing. So I'm going to take this one, that solid surface. I'm also going to isolate it like I did before. And I do want to have the points turned on. So let me go ahead and select it. I'm just going to type points on and enter. So it shows me the points. And I only have 4 points to work with. But what I'd like to do right now is actually rebuild this. And it's a different command. So I'm going to type in rebuild. You can see it shown right there. R-E-B-U-I-L-D, rebuild. I'll click on it. And then it says select curves, extrusions, or surfaces to rebuild. So I'll pick this one and enter. And now it's showing me that this window where it says it will rebuild the surface. Now I went ahead and already typed in these values. The point count along the U and the V, just think of this as your X and Y axis. It's a different way of programs to do this. And a lot of programs use the U and V a lot. So just think of it that way as X and Y. And you don't need to go with anything higher right now since we're practicing. So I'm just setting it to a 4 by 4 point count. And I'll go ahead and click OK. So now it's giving me more points. And what I can do now is manipulate these points either one at a time. So if I just pick this one here, I can click and drag that up. And I'm really going to exaggerate it a bit here because I want you to see what's going to happen. So you see what it's doing. It's changing that a bit. I can also come over here, let's say to these points and just pick all of these like this. And I can bring those up all at once, all four like that. I can edit these individually also. So I can pick this point and maybe bring that up or even down. And maybe I want to pick these 2 points and bring those up a little bit and just play around with it. And I can orbit, take a look at that shape, how it's changing. Maybe I want to pick this point, just bring it down like that. Orbit again, take a look. Maybe select my object and then orbit around my object or about my object. There we go. And by the way, I'm able to orbit around the gumball because I can click here on this menu and it says gumball on. And then I always have it set to rotate view around gumball. That's checked. So that's why it's working out real nice. So I'll click off of it and then I'm going to tap the escape key. And when I do that, the points disappear. So if I want to bring them back, I have to type points on. And then I'll go ahead and type show. And this is the shape that I get. So it does change the abstract quality of the tree, more lifelike, if you will. It's okay to leave them all flat, nothing wrong with that, but I just wanted to show you some additional commands, some things you can do here with Rhino. And I also wanted you to see what's possible. So have a little fun with it, make up your own tree. You can certainly practice this, but practice a couple of others. And what I would do is I would just take that whole set of objects there and maybe just move it out of the way. So let me just do this and I'll just move it over here. So now I have a couple of copies, a couple of trees there, and then start all over with a new tree. So truncated cone, which is what I had done. And I'll start at 0. And then maybe the base on this one will be 5. Maybe this tree, I want it to be 35 feet tall. And then at the top, I want that maybe to be 2 inches. So it's pretty narrow. I can bend it, do whatever I want. And then I'm just going to throw this out to you. If you would like to create a evergreen tree, you can always practice and maybe try creating another, I wouldn't say truncated cone, but just another cone. And I'm just going to draw this on the side like this, like this, like that. And you can have that effect. You can create that as a shape. You could also use that as a guide to maybe draw the big circle ellipse at the bottom and then taper it as it goes to the top. What I did here is more of a deciduous tree, what we really see around the city a lot. This you would find more far away from the city, mountains, things like that. Um, it's not a common tree here in the city. So just throwing out some ideas. Another idea also, you can create another shape, and I believe it's this one, the ellipsoid. 1 second. And I think ellipsoid from center is the one I want to pick. So I'll just type 0 as the center point, and I'll pick a point out here. I'll pick a point there, and then I'll give it some height like this. Select it and move that up. Maybe put it right there, and that's also possible for a tree. I can always take that shape, and if I want, just extend it, stretch it out a little bit more in that direction, stretch it out in this direction, and maybe along the green axis as well, like that. So I can manipulate that. If you want to see where the tree trunk is, you can always go to your view here and go to maybe ghosted. There we go. Take a look at that. Bring this down somewhere there. So a lot of different ways to make trees. Try try a couple of different ones. Practice the one I'm showing you and then see what else comes to mind. Have some fun, be creative, and then don't forget to save your file. All right, that's all for now. Thank you very much.